had any conversations with Iran in the last few days, and are you planning on any?
I have had, and I am planning on it, yeah.
US President Donald Trump has reportedly been presented with a fresh set of military options aimed at expanding potential attack plans against Iran amid escalating tensions across the Middle East. According to officials, the new options focus on inflicting additional damage to Iran's nuclear and missile facilities and on further weakening the Tehran regime's military infrastructure and command structure. The New York Times, citing unnamed US officials on January 29th, reported exclusive details of the updated contingency plans currently being reviewed by the White House National Security Team. One of the options reportedly suggests that American special forces could conduct surgical raids on specific sites inside Iran, targeting components of its weapons and nuclear programs. These raids could involve US commandos attempting to destroy or sabotage nuclear facilities that survived the June 2025 airstrikes carried out by coalition forces. Sources told the paper that the planning model draws from recent US operations in Venezuela, where elite units captured high-profile targets including former President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. However, several senior officials have warned against any direct ground operation in Iran, citing the significantly higher risk, logistical complexity, and possibility of heavy casualties. Analysts note that Washington's repeated drafting of strike plans reflects frustration with the limited effectiveness of air and missile attacks launched against Iran during the June campaign. Trump himself has previously expressed reservations about launching any ground mission in Iran, reiterating that he wants to avoid costly long wars that drain American lives and resources. He reportedly invoked Jimmy Carter's failed 1980 rescue operation to save 52 US hostages in Tehran as a cautionary example of how such missions can end disastrously. On January 28th, Trump issued what he called a final warning to Tehran, urging Iran's leadership to accept a new agreement and responsibility for regional stability. The next attack will be far worse, Trump warned, referring to the US strikes conducted in June 2025 that targeted Iran's military and nuclear assets without toppling its government. In response, Iran lashed out at Washington, reminding US officials of the human and financial costs borne in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Iran's mission to the United Nations stated that the US had squandered over $7 trillion and lost more than 7,000 American lives in conflicts that failed to achieve lasting results. According to the New York Times, the second proposed US option involves targeted attacks against Iran's top leadership and its core military establishments, an approach aimed at paralyzing command and control across Tehran's security apparatus. Officials believe that successive strikes on key figures could trigger a crisis within Iran's political hierarchy and potentially encourage security forces to move against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Yet intelligence analysts warn the succession outcome remains uncertain. It is not clear who within the clerical or military elite would emerge to lead should Khamenei be removed from power. Notably, reports from the New York Times also suggest that President Trump's motivation for considering renewed action against Iran partly stems from personal threats allegedly issued by the Iranian regime. In a parallel development, Israel has purportedly presented the White House with a third option, a focused campaign targeting Iran's ballistic missile production and storage sites. Military experts believe that Tehran has largely rebuilt the missile stockpile it expended during last June's barrage against Israel, restoring much of its pre-war capacity. Israeli officials continue to view Iran's missile program as an existential threat, particularly after the demonstrated accuracy and volume of Iranian strikes during the 12-day war of 2025. That conflict saw Iran launch massive missile salvos that overwhelmed Israeli air defense systems and caused extensive damage to strategic infrastructure and military installations. The United States itself has acknowledged the growing danger posed by Iran's expanding arsenal of precision missiles, which remain capable of hitting targets anywhere in the regional theater.
We notice a lot of movement into the region by our Navy and other authorities. But what happens if the supreme leader is removed in Iran? What happens next?
Well, that's an open question. I mean, no one knows who would take over. Obviously, their system is divided between the supreme leader and the IRGC that responds directly to him. And then you've got these, quasi-elected individuals, the ones that wear the suits on television who are part of their political branches, but ultimately have to run everything they do by the supreme leader. So I don't think anyone can give you a simple answer as to what happens next in Iran if the supreme leader and the regime were to fall, other than the hope that there would be some ability to have somebody within their systems that you could work towards a similar transition. I would imagine it would be even far more complex than the one we're describing now, because you're talking about a regime that's in place for a very long time. So that's going to require a lot of careful thinking if that eventuality ever presents itself. On the issue of our presence in the region, here's the baseline I want to set for everybody. The baseline is this. We have 30 to 40,000 American troops stationed across 8 or 9 facilities in that region. All are within the reach, theoretically, not theoretically, in reality, all are within the reach of an array of thousands of Iranian one-way UAVs and Iranian short-term ballistic missiles, short-range ballistic missiles that threaten our troop presence. We have to have enough force and power in the region, just on a baseline, to defend against that possibility. That at some point, as a result of something, the Iranian regime decides to strike at our troop presence in the region. The president always reserves the preemptive defensive option. In essence, if we have indications that in fact they're going to attack our troops in the region, to defend our personnel in the region. We also have security agreements, the Defense of Israel Plan and others, that require us to have a force posture in the region to defend against that. And so I think it's wise and prudent to have a force posture within the region that could respond and potentially, not necessarily what's going to happen, but if necessary, preemptively prevent the attack against thousands of American servicemen and other facilities in the region and our allies. I hope it doesn't come to that, but that's, I think, what you're seeing now, is the ability to posture assets in the region to defend against what could be an Iranian threat against our personnel. They certainly have the capability to do it because they've amassed thousands and thousands of ballistic missiles that they've built. Despite the fact that their economy's collapsing, they keep spending money.
According to the New York Times, President Donald Trump has not yet made a final decision on potential military strike options against Iran and remains open to renewed negotiations if diplomacy can yield results. Earlier reports indicated that Trump had considered ordering limited strikes on symbolic targets, including headquarters of Iranian security forces accused of suppressing widespread domestic protests. At the same time, the White House has reiterated Washington's position that talks remain possible, with Trump again offering to negotiate if Tehran accepts a new set of strict U.S. demands. Those conditions include Iran's complete forfeiture of its nuclear ambitions, major curbs on its ballistic missile development programs, and the dismantling of support networks for regional proxy groups. The diplomatic overture comes even as the United States continues to expand its military presence across the Middle East, with reinforcements deployed to deter what officials describe as Iranian aggression.
Have you had any conversations with Iran in the last few days, and are you planning on any?
I have had, and I am planning on it, yeah. We have a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and it would be great if we didn't have to use them. Okay?
Can you say what the message was that you shared with Iranians?
Well, I told them 2 things. Number 1, no nuclear, and number 2, stop killing protesters. They're killing them by the thousands. You know, I stopped 837 hangings 2 weeks ago, but they're going to have to do something. Nobody's seen anything like it.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.